What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Travel Times with Laura and Peter. Today we are joined by my good friend Wil Dasovich, the wonderful, very talented travel vlogger. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to have you as a guest. You were the first person I thought of when I was starting this podcast as someone I had to have on because you're awesome and I love you. So do you want to tell a little bit about yourself and how we know each other?
Yeah, thank you. First off, thank you for having me on this podcast. And it's so great to finally meet your significant other because we've had many conversations about you, obviously.
All good
But
things.
yeah, it's great to see your face and finally meet you. So
Likewise.
I have been working in social media, I guess now for 4.5 years. I primarily focus on YouTube. So I would first off say I'm a YouTuber and then I do social media because by default, you kind of just have to do everything. And I started making YouTube videos back in 2016 when I was working in tech in San Francisco. So I used to have a tech job, a 9-to-5 job. And my brother at the time was living in the Philippines. He still lives there now. He's a huge YouTuber in the Philippines. Obviously, we all know that.
Shout out Wil Dasovich.
Yeah, which he will be on this podcast at some point. So my brother was living in the Philippines and I was living in California working in tech. And I regularly visit my family there because we've spent most of our lives growing up in between California and the Philippines. So my parents are frequently moving between California and the Philippines, like every 6 months they're there too. So I would go visit there I would take time off of work and I would go to the Philippines. And one time I was in the Philippines for Christmas and New Year's, just visiting family. And my brother starts telling me that he's making YouTube videos. Like he made a series on YouTube. And I was like, great, cool. What does that mean? And he was like I'm getting subscribers. And I'd be like, what do you mean people subscribe to your YouTube channel? So he showed me a lot. This was way before I had visited him. And I was like trying to understand what he was doing on YouTube. So I visited him and he had this idea where he was like, let's just sit down, let's make a YouTube video. And it's just going to be me and you. And of course, like, obviously 4.5 years ago, I wasn't used to being on camera yet. And like, I had grown up doing theater, right? I'd done musical theater since I was 5 years old, but that's not the same, right? I guess in some way, in some aspect, like it's all a performance at the end of the day, you know, but being on camera and having this fat thing in your face is completely different, right? So I get to Philippines and like day 2, my brother sits down. I mean, he has the camera on all the time. And again, not used to this whole camera being on all the time. So I get there, camera's on all the time. I'm not used to it. Day 2, I'm in the Philippines and he says, okay, let's sit down and let's film this video. So we basically sit at a table and the whole thing was unscripted and it's just me and him sitting there. And it's basically full of like our sibling banter. And it's just interacting. Like it's a like a 10 or 15-minute video of us just sitting at a table being siblings, right? And I think at the time he had maybe like around 30,000 subs. And that video went viral to us. Like it gained like 50,000 views, which at the time we were like, oh my God, it's going viral. And we named that video, it's still on my brother's YouTube channel. It's called Filipino Twins because at the time, like there used to be twins on YouTube and they were getting a lot of notoriety. And their first video that went viral was called something twins or whatever. So we were like, let's just be Filipino twins. So we had this whole like act where we were twins because we're so close in age. We're 16 months apart. And it just got so many views and people loved it. And yeah, and it was just so like genuine because it was so awkward and so new. And that kind of got the ball rolling. So he uploaded that video and it did so well that within the same 2 weeks I was in the Philippines, he was like, okay, this is the next idea. You're going to pretend to take over my vlog because also his audience had no idea he had a sister. So there's another video and I think it's called like oh my God, maybe it's like Filipino girl loves the Philippines or like American girl.
I remember watching these actually before I even knew you. Yeah.
It's like that title that's so clickbaity, like Filipino clickbait, you know? So the video is just basically me seeing that he's sleeping and like seeing that like taking his camera, turning it on, seeing that he's sleeping, and then just like having fun with it and pretending like I'm going to steal his camera and do a vlog. But the whole time behind the scenes, he was telling me exactly what to do, you know? So I got this YouTube mentorship without even asking. Like I dove into it without even knowing that I was diving into it. And so that video did so well because all we did was we like biked around Manila. We did a lot of things that like, I would say the upper class in Manila don't really do, and they find that it's kind of unsafe to just like bike around Manila and go to the, you know, just go around the city. And so that video got a lot of views too. Okay, so both these videos got so many views that that subscribers started flocking to my YouTube channel without me even having any content on it. So at this point, I had like 2,000 followers, 2,000 subscribers. And my brother was like, you have to upload something, like just upload anything, upload whatever. So of course, like the first few uploads is like the first one I really ever uploaded was like a minute video of me trying to vlog, which was so stupid. And then I started making videos about like my life in San Francisco, and then making videos about trips that I was taking when I would take time off work. And it only took less than a year for me to decide that like I was going to quit my job and I was just going to go travel and make YouTube videos and see where it took me. But I didn't have a plan. Like I wasn't like, I have a goal of, you know, getting to 100,000 subscribers. Because when I then eventually quit my job in 2016 and went and traveled, that was just completely out of me being who I am, being like, I'm just going to quit my job and travel, which is something that I've done numerous amount of times. But the difference is that I had a YouTube channel and I was going to start making videos about all of my travels. And so that September 2016 was when I really, like, even when I quit my job, I had another job lined up 2 months down the line because I thought I was going to come back to San Francisco and continue doing what I was doing. And then in those 2 months from September to November was when I got my first like influencer. Influencer wasn't a term at this time, by the way, in October 2016. So we didn't know what to call ourselves. We were like, you know, what are we, YouTubers? We went to college.
YouTubers, yeah.
Yeah, we got a degree and now we make videos on YouTube. So in between September and November was when I got my first influencer job, and it was through networking. It was through like getting to know some people in Asia while I was out in the Philippines. And that was when I went to Bali. And so I did the wonderful Indonesia trip with the tourism board of Indonesia in Bali. And that was really my first trip. And then also in that trip was when I met Laura and Christian. And that's really what I think that month was really what set it off, because that was like the first month that I like worked night and day and like tried to daily vlog, not totally daily vlog, but like 5 to 6 videos a week, you know,
which is
and
a
then
lot.
yeah. And then I was also really starting to meet like YouTubers around the world. Like I remember we met up with Exploring with Cody, who is now a really good friend of ours. And we met up with Sawyer Hartman, and all these people who had millions of subs. And I know that I had around 30,000 subs at that time. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, should I even be around these people? But now that I'm in a place where like, I've gained, you know, just as many subscribers, 600,000 subscribers. Like now I'm looking at the people with 30,000 subs and I'm like, oh yeah, like we're all part of the same club, you know, like numbers never matter. Like everyone, especially I feel like YouTubers have this just like we all just get each other from the moment we meet, you know, like, oh, you make YouTube videos. Oh, then you get it. Like you get the struggle.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work, and even explaining to people that what it's not, because everyone's like, oh, you're always on vacation, and it's like, no, that's not the case at all. You're grinding, and especially when making travel vlogs, making 5 a week, even like you said, that is a huge hustle and a huge grind. And so that's why I think a lot of YouTubers hang around each other, because you get it and you get how much work it is. So it's like having that kind of environment, I think, helps make you thrive.
Yeah, and I agree with you that like people just think you're on vacation all the time, you know? Like there's such a heavy, massive amount of conceptualizing and production. Like we basically are our own one woman production show or one man production show, whatever you are. Since I started YouTubing in 2016, I've worked with about like almost 10 people as a one-on-one coach, only in the last year, who all want to start a YouTube channel. And out of all those people I've coached, 2 of them continued on a consistent uploading schedule. Like maybe one even dropped off. So like I would say probably 1, because creating a YouTube channel is not the difficult part. Like anyone could do that. The hardest part is not giving up. And I think that, you know, if YouTube were easy, you could say this about a lot of things in social media, but if YouTube were easy, then everyone would be doing it. And that's why it's literally, YouTube is the hardest social media platform to be on and stick with. Why? Because it's not like you're just taking a picture, writing a caption, uploading it, and then responding to some comments and being like, all right, cool, I'm done today, you know? Or like, it's not like, I feel like I'm shitting on Instagram, but I'm just trying to like realistically compare the two. Like, it's not like making a 15-second story and then like easily redoing it, you know? It's not even like recording a podcast where no one has to see you. I mean, that is if you're not filming it for YouTube,
A video, yeah.
But like
but
you
a
can be in
regular
your house
podcast
clothes.
yeah.
Right, regular podcast, right? Because when you become a YouTuber, you must you have to get in front of the camera to show your face to the world at least once a week. You have to know what kind of value you're adding. Like, you know, you gotta bring stuff to the table if you want to stand out and if you want to get above the noise, right? Because let's level with ourselves. Like, there's so much crap out there as like influencers, you know, and like, you know, it's sometimes it's a bad connotation and whatever. And then also, like with YouTube, you have to show up knowing that this is the hardest social media platform to maintain a schedule on. So like most of the people that I've worked with in the last year have said to me, Instagram is so much easier. And every time I hear that, I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. That's why everyone is on Instagram, because it's easier. You know, you can't compare a 15-second video to weeks worth of research and scripting, followed by like a 3-hour filming session, followed by a 10+ hour editing session. It's like comparing, okay, I'm sorry I'm shitting on Instagram, but it's like
Sorry for anyone out there who wants to be an Instagrammer. You are valued.
It's like chess compared to checkers.
You're not valued for it daily, but to us.
Okay, that was a great comparison. I was gonna say,
do you say chess?
That was great.
I said chess compared to checkers.
There you go.
Yeah. It's like comparing writing out your grocery list to an academic thesis.
Okay.
Oh man, that's savage.
So the moral of the story is Haley doesn't like Instagram. No, but I think so. You're someone. So let's give people who want to maybe start YouTube channels a tip that they can take away, because I think you are good at coming up with a story and just getting above the noise. Like you said, I really like the way you said that. So what's something, and I mean, that's something I even struggle with, is trying to come up with content that's maybe different and well thought out. And I think that's a lot of YouTubers' problems. What's kind of a tip in doing that? Because a lot of your content you post is clearly a lot of thought has gone into it.
Yeah. So one thing that's super important that I only recently learned, like, you know, I've been doing this for 4.5 years, but like there are so many things that I just now learned in the last like 1.5 to 2 years, is scripting. Like, scripting is so important, because if you want to, like, the more you think about your story and the more that you write down all your thoughts and all your ideas, the more like concise everything is going to be. So like that's if you're making like a very topical video, right? So if you have a video where which is, I think, is like a huge, well, it is a huge trend in YouTube right now, where it's like, you know, I did this for 24 hours, or like, you know, it's like obviously providing value and teaching people how to do something, or making a video about a certain type of experience, and then showcasing that experience, and then obviously talking about like your takeaways and you know what you went through. Scripting is so important, and that's something that I only learned very recently. So scripting as in like really writing out a screenplay, like intro, 10-second drone footage, flash title, whatever, scene one, like, and then the way that I do it is like scene one, and then I'm saying like to vlog, and then I'll write what I'm going to say to the vlog. So you don't have to necessarily do this with like all of your videos, but the more you script each video, the easier it gets to like get into the storytelling. And also in the editing process, which by the way, editing, like no matter how shitty your video is, you can always save it in the editing. Like I've had so many videos on YouTube where I'm like, God, this was the shittiest video ever. And then I edit it, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I upload it, and I get comments like, the editing was so great. Like, so it's just like funny, but yeah, scripting is key. And also just like brainstorming. So I think people just like underestimate how important it is to brainstorm, to like carve out a time in your week. It doesn't have to be every single day, like in your week, like where do you have quiet time? Okay. Like where think about where you are that generates the best ideas. And a lot of people do that, like going on walks, that doesn't really work for me. Like I'll go on a walk and I like sometimes just like spiral thoughts. But for me, it's like driving in my car. So, or it's going on a run. So these, and I've realized that like these two activities for me, like sometimes I'll figure my life out on a run, And so what I do is I carve time out to make sure that I go on a run, or like I even go on a drive. And that's where I generate my ideas. And then I'll come back from that and I'll write them down immediately. And then you kind of get into this flow state. And if you're not in that flow state, then you really have to carve out time, because you can't just sit down and like brainstorm and be like 15 minutes of brainstorming, like brainstorming and getting into your creative state is all about that flow, and you have to like zone in. So like whether that's like sitting quietly and listening to like cinematic soundtracks, maybe that like generates inspiration. I know that when I was like daily vlogging a few years ago, and obviously like I didn't really know how to get B-roll, I wasn't really like good at getting shots. What helped me to get better shots and to feel inspired in the moment was just like listening to B-roll music, like listening to copyright free music, because then you would like see your vlog come to life in the midst of it, and it would just make it easier. So I just think that like people underestimate scripting and brainstorming, and you do have to carve time out and prioritize that, because that's really where your creative ideas will flow.
Mm-hmm. I think too, also the best with brainstorming sessions, you need to cut yourself off from social media when doing that. So I think that's a really good tip. Going for a run or something, anytime you're glued to your phone, there's no really that creative ideas coming in. Maybe you'll get inspired from someone else, but you won't get those original creative ideas. And so I definitely think carving that time out makes a huge difference when trying to come up with unique content, because I think a lot of content creators right now, they kind of struggle with just repeating other people's content that have performed well. I mean, I've been guilty of that many times before. But you won't stand out from the crowd that way, and that's the only problem. So
yeah, no, I think that like it's important to take other people's content ideas and spin it as your own. And I think that's actually a great thing that you brought up, because that's super important when you're starting out as in YouTube, is like, most of the time you're not going to come to YouTube with like all of these ideas. It's like you have an idea, and that you want to start a YouTube channel, and that you want to start making videos, and you have this small idea. But I think a really good way to really get inspired and to get those ideas going is to obviously watch other YouTubers. And I know that like your content, just like you're going to evolve, you're going to transform, your interests are going to change. And so in the beginning, when I started YouTubing, I was watching Casey Neistat and Ben Brown. And it was Casey Neistat, Ben Brown, sometimes Fun for Louie, but I got a lot of my stylistic, like blogging style from those two. And so like now, if you look back at my videos a few years ago, like you might see some similarities, because I would literally watch a Casey Neistat video, get the exact same shots, but obviously I wasn't in New York and I wasn't, doing what he was doing. But I would try to get the same shots, and just copying people like that alone will help you teach yourself how to get those shots, how to make those shots look the way they do, you know? And it's same with like short form videos. Like that's why TikTok is so, it's so fun, because it's so easy, because you just see what other people are doing. You take that exact same idea and you just spin it and use it as your own. And of course, once you start doing that and you start getting into this like consistent schedule of like making content for whatever social media platform, you start getting better and better at it the more that you do it. And then you start becoming more clever with your ideas. You know, it's just like a total like snowball effect.
I was just going to ask, in terms of like your content, is it mostly travel right now, or have you kind of changed because of, COVID, or how would you describe, I guess, your content?
Yeah. So my content pre-COVID was travel centric. It was very much like travel vlogs, like in between the travel vlogs, I mean, in between the traveling and then in the midst of traveling. I think, yeah, most of my videos were like that. And then COVID hit, and it was kind of like, well, I really have to figure out what I'm going to do at home in my room, which is what most YouTubers do. Most YouTubers are literally making videos in their room, and their oversight and their cost is like so much smaller than a stupid travel YouTuber.
So expensive travel vlogging to start.
It's ridiculous, and it's so difficult to do that. So anyway, like I had to figure out. So I just basically did a lot of like YouTube research. I was like figuring out like what are people out there doing that I could potentially try and do. And I tried everything. I was like cooking, I was like playing music. I basically like decided, you know, what can I do from my room? And I think the videos that really allowed me to grow and allowed me to realize that like I don't have to be out traveling, because I can actually be inspired in my room, which is like really difficult for me to even think about because it sounds uninspiring, was just like realizing that I could start teaching people what I know. And so I started making videos just about like social media and about like tech, the tech and camera gear that I have. And I watched Laura's videos and I was like, I could do the exact same video. And I literally copied Laura.
That's awesome.
So anyway, my content has now really expanded from travel adventures to just like providing social media and tech advice. And then also I took the travel idea and I spun it on a new concept where I filmed a few videos right before COVID hit, like right before it was a pandemic. I filmed a video in Turkey where I worked at a doner kebab shop, and like it was a challenge video, but it was also a travel video because it was like, you know, I took on this job but I was in Turkey, and so, you know, this was the culture and this is how it works. And then I did another video where I worked as a tricycle driver in the Philippines. So I just and also I was realizing that like a lot of trends on YouTube were going this way, where like yes theory is huge on this. I got a lot of inspiration from Michelle Correa. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she does a lot of these like I trained like, you know, Black Widow from Marvel, or like I trained like Spider-Man. Like she did a lot of those videos. So I was like, how can I take travel and kind of move it in the same way that the YouTube trends are? And so I kind of started experimenting with that. And then pandemic happened and I just kind of went all over the place. And I have such a huge niche. Like when people ask me what I do, like I've you know, dumbed it down to like 3 different categories, but literally these categories are everything. So when people are like, what kind of YouTube videos do you make? I say, I do travel videos, I do challenge videos, and I do tech and social media advice. And you know what, like that could involve anything and everything. So I don't know if I would recommend people do that. You know, like I at the end of the day, I think I will still recommend people to like niche down, because I really think that the more the more niching down you do, like actually the bigger of an audience you can reach, unless you are trying to be some big entertaining YouTuber with like a big personality or like a comedian or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think also too what the pandemic has taught us is that you have to be able to diversify and be able to adjust, because I find the people like OG YouTubers, for example, those who didn't adapt to the times and didn't adjust their content, their channels aren't really around anymore. Whereas the YouTubers who did do that, they're still going strong. They're still getting a ton of views on their video. And that's kind of like, you really need to be able to change with the social media platforms that you're on. And that goes for any of them. Otherwise, you just get left behind essentially. So yeah, this year's definitely been interesting, but I really love everything you've done with your videos. And I think you're really onto something too with all the working different jobs, because it's such a unique way to do a travel video. And it's still a travel video, but then it's your own spin on it, and you get to see your personality. And yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it sounds cool.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason I asked, because like, how would you describe your content? Because I remember when we were talking, you were talking earlier about a couple different things. I guess when you kind of you kind of told the story already about how you got started. Did you know that travel was going to be like the main thing that you were going to try to do with your channel
Yes. So
right
that
away?
is something that I 100% knew. It's always been top of mind. The most interesting thing for me, like ever, is just to like travel and explore new places. And yeah, yeah, that was definitely always it. So I guess I did decide a niche in the beginning, but yeah, it's always been travel centric for sure.
So you've obviously gone to a lot of really cool places. I think one of the most standout places you've gone is Pakistan, and you actually traveled alone there for a little bit. Can you kind of tell us what that was like, actually traveling alone in Pakistan as a solo female traveler?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got one of my friends, his name is Travel Tom Tom. He's an Instagrammer and a blogger. He hit me up. I've traveled with him a bunch of times. He hit me up in like November, maybe September 2019 about going to Pakistan. And here's the thing about Pakistan is that a year before in 2018 I was in Sri Lanka and I was on this trip with the tourism board, and so I was like meeting a bunch of influencers there, and at the end of the trip I met this guy who had been to Pakistan 2 times, he told me. And in 2018 when he told me that, I was like, wait, what? You went to Pakistan? Like, what are you talking about? You know? And like I was shocked that he'd been there, and he was like, yeah, the people are great, everyone's nice, it's such a beautiful country, all this stuff, you know? And I was like, in my head I was totally admittingly judging him, being like, it's because he's a man, he can just go wherever he wants, you know? Less than a year later, I got an invite to go on this trip. And after doing a lot of research, because I never just like say yes to going on a trip if I don't know what I'm getting myself into, you know, like I heavily research countries before I go there. I do not go in blindly. And so after heavily researching Pakistan and like seeing a lot of people in the previous year had traveled there, not people like I guess Westerners, you know, YouTubers, like people who are kind of prominent on social media, I was like, okay, like I think this is going to be okay. And I watched a lot of vlogs of people going to Pakistan, because actually there are a few YouTubers who had gone in 2018 who made a ton of vlogs, and I watched them. And so I made the decision to go, and my visa lasted 1 month. So I was like, I'm going to Pakistan, I might as well go for a month. So what I did was I traveled there for a week, well, less than a week. I just got there alone first. And at first, of course, it was really difficult telling my family and friends, because no one was stoked about it. Like my family was like, what? You're going to, you know, everyone was just so concerned. And also, like, I think in a way, I went to Pakistan first off as a solo female traveler for the first week, to challenge my own preconceptions, and to really just go in with an open mind, and you know, go in like I do with any country, and be myself, and like stay vigilant and do all the things that I do in every country. And it was like the easiest place to travel solo as a female, surprisingly. And I will say though, and I definitely feel like this needs to be mentioned, that like even though it was easy for me to travel solo, and I know that there have been females, like social media females, in the few years previous that have traveled solo there, even though it was may have been easy for us, it's I don't think it's like that for females in Pakistan. Like, I don't think that it would be they would be rewarded or recommended or even celebrated for traveling alone, because the culture is so different, you know. So I just think that that's worth mentioning, that like, just because I got to go there alone, it's so different for people in that country. But the reason why it was so much easier than I thought is because I I really hadn't, I mean, I traveled Nepal, and that was Central Asia. And I just felt like Pakistan was going to be a country where, like, the moment I landed, I was going to be bombarded with hustlers and bombarded with people who are like trying to get money and like all this stuff. So I like really prepared myself, and like in my mindset, I like went in being like, be strong, be vigilant, you know, like stand tall, whatever. I was like the things that solo female travelers have to practice all the time. And the moment I landed at the airport in Islamabad, it was like 10 o'clock at night. Like, no one bothered me. No one even really looked at me, you know? And I walked out of the airport, and there were taxis, and no one was talking to me. No one was paying attention to me. And I was like, wow, this has been like a breeze, you know? Like, I have not had to ward off anyone. And it was so easy. Like, I couldn't get an Uber. So that's what also makes Pakistan so easy to travel, is because they have freaking Uber. Okay. And like, anytime you eliminate having to communicate with people who don't really speak English, it just makes the situation so much easier. So I couldn't get an Uber because it was so late. And so I just randomly asked someone that was waiting for a taxi, like, if they could help me get a taxi or get an Uber. And so they helped me. And obviously, like, you know, me being, you know, first time I'm in a country by myself, I asked the guy a million questions. Do you know where I'm going? Do you know what this address is? Are you sure you know where this address is? Like, it was like, you know, like, I interrogated him. And he was just so kind and so nice. And he got me to where I was going. And, you know, it was like a 15-minute ride through Islamabad. And I got to my Airbnb, and it was, dude, not even kidding, it was like the easiest, most streamlined check, like landing, visa check, passport, immigration, like Uber experience, checking into my Airbnb, just so easy. And then from there, you know, the next day I was in Islamabad, and really the only thing I'd heard about Islamabad was in like 2003, when the American Navy SEAL team like landed in Islamabad to try and extract Osama bin Laden from Abbottabad, which is like, you know, a couple hours north. So obviously I had that in my head, because that's totally American media, you know, in my head. And the next day I just decided to walk around. And of course, like, I knew how I had to dress. So obviously, like, you're in an Islamic country, in most Islamic countries, you have to cover yourself. And it's just part of the culture. And like, you should absolutely do that whenever you travel to an Islamic country, just like abide by the local, you know, the local culture, the local rules. So I covered myself, and I walked around Islamabad, and I noticed that the first thing that I noticed was that, like, I was going into a lot of public places, and just buying street food. I noticed that I was really like the only female in these public places, and that was like shocking to me, you know, at first, because I never really experienced that. And also, like, I was I was like garnering so much attention because I had a freaking Joby and a camera, and I'm like talking to my camera like a vlogger, you know, walking around these public spaces. So obviously people are staring at me for that, and also being like, who's this, like, you know, obvious foreigner female who's coming into, and that was kind of shocking. But it's shocking because we come from a culture where staring is like is deemed rude and also invasive. Whereas, like, over there, and in also many countries in the world, people stare because they're curious, and that's not necessarily rude in their culture or in their country. So, so I and I've, you know, having traveled to so many places, like I've been to many countries where people are staring because you're a foreigner and you're like in their country. And so that wasn't like, I wasn't nervous because of staring, but it was nerve wracking to me just because I noticed that I was really the only female in a public space. And then beyond that though, I had to think about like, okay, where are the females? Okay, the females are probably like at their homes taking care of their children, or like, being, just at home, maybe. Not many of them are like out in the workforce or like out taking their lunch break in this public space. So it's not that females are not allowed in these areas. It's just that they're not there because, they're out doing something else.
Yeah, I remember watching your vlog and I was like, wow, you have a lot, because yeah, you had your camera out and you could see in the background and everyone was staring at you. I'm like, that would have been obviously a very intimidating thing, but I think that's so cool that you went and did it and you pushed your travel boundaries. And I mean, obviously as a female, you have extra precautions you need to be careful about. But it's cool seeing other female travel vloggers be really courageous, and they're traveling and doing things by themselves and being like, we can do things all the boys can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that like, especially with solo female travel, it's just being off alone in the world is always going to be scary feeling at first. I mean, I think, you get used to it, but when you travel alone and you do it so often, you become your own best friend. You start relying on yourself, and you really rely on your instincts, and that kind of allows you to wholly like pursue those interests, is when you can rely on yourself and you trust yourself. And then that's when the greatness happens, so that's when you like really start to dive into wherever you are and like feel comfortable and be yourself and talk to people and really trust your instincts. I think like your gut feeling is so important as a solo traveler.
For people traveling to Pakistan for the first time, do you have any recommendations?
Yes, I definitely think you should watch my Pakistan series. I think I made like 5 videos. I was there for a month. I made 5 videos. And it starts with the first video. The title is called American Woman's First Impressions of Pakistan. And that was like the story about the journey of traveling there solo and being there, and what I was even doing there, why I was going there, how I got in, all that stuff. And then it'll lead you. And then basically I made travel vlogs / traveling guides around the places you should visit in Pakistan, like the cities all throughout the entire country.
That's super interesting.
Very cool.
Well, yeah, you guys definitely need to check that out. So I'm going to leave that all linked below in the description and in the show notes if you guys are listening to this only. So obviously Pakistan, it was a very cool country to travel. Do you have any other countries that was really standout countries to you that you'd want to go back and recommend to people?
When people ask me like what are my favorite countries, I always respond with like, I feel like it's similar to like choosing my favorite child or something. So places that I always go back to Copenhagen. I freaking love Copenhagen. And I think it's because, I'd been there as a child a bunch of times because my mom actually lived there for 10 years and then she moved to California, and that's when she met my dad. And so we'd been there as children. And so I developed all these like nostalgic childhood memories from there. But then also on my first ever solo trip after I graduated college, I went straight to Copenhagen and I landed there. And that's where I like, pep talked with myself and like, I had to realize that like, okay, I came out and did this and I'm here. And then that led me to traveling for 4.5 months through like 13 different countries. But yeah, so I always go back to Copenhagen. Also, it's just so civilized there, like everything just works. Everything's just right there. I go back to Taipei. I've been to Taipei like 4 times in the last 2 years, or in the last 3 years, I guess. Taipei is amazing because I still feel like it's a little bit off people's like tourist radar. And it's like a super civilized country. Everyone is so genuinely nice and willing to help you. Not many people there speak English, so there is a language barrier, but it's as cheap as the rest of Asia, and the food's great, and like the party's great, So Copenhagen, Taipei, and then those two places I really like always want to go back to. I kind of always figure out like in between trips, like when I'm going to go back there.
Almost
Um,
like a second home kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Like I just need to, and then I have friends there too, so that obviously helps. When I go back to the Philippines, I usually stay for like a month at least, and I see a lot of my family, and I settle in, like, and then sometimes I'll make like small trips here and there. Oh, Japan, Japan! I will always go back to Japan. God, I love that
Yeah,
country.
we went there. That's where we went on our first kind of trip together. And we did 2 weeks almost, or no, a week in Tokyo. And it was just the coolest thing ever. And the food's so good. And there's just so many, like every corner you go around, you can find something cool in Japan.
Yeah, could have spent way longer in
Yeah, we want to go
Tokyo.
back. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I thought it
Yeah.
was. I felt like we could have spent like a month there and not
I'd
seen
live there
everything.
for sure.
Yeah.
What was like one of the biggest highlights of being in Tokyo that may have like surprised you, or that you just would have, is the reason why you would have stayed there?
I don't know. I want to say it's almost a combination of things. So between the food and all the cool stores you can go into, and just like I feel like it has a good mix of things. So you can do the nature stuff, you can go and see the temples, but then there's so many good Japanese spots, and then even going into like the little hole in the walls yakitori spots. We found like a few because he had a friend that actually came up with this huge comprehensive list, and he shared with us, and we had all these kind of local spots to go and explore, and it was included this one yakitori, is that right?
Shout out Adam Mills. Thanks.
Yeah, there's one shop, and it was we just opened the door and it was just full of people, but from the street you never would have known where it was. So it's such a good idea to get recommendations from people before going to
Yeah.
Japan. But yeah, I would love to go
What's
back.
your yakitori?
It's that so meat on a stick.
Yeah,
And
like
then
a skewer.
a skewer essentially. And yeah, you can order it off the menu and you can pick which one you want, and then they bring it out to you and then they put it on your plate, and it's kind of like they
It's kind of like their
do it
version
when
of
it's
almost
ready.
like bar, like Appy's
Yeah.
kind of tapas. Yeah.
And then you get sake,
No.
like it's so good.
Oh God.
What was your favorite part when you went?
My favorite part was the hole in the wall restaurants, and the ramen. Like
Mm.
So good. I
I'm
fell in
such
love
a
with ramen
ramen
there.
fiend.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I crave ramen like once a month, like real authentic Japanese ramen. I mean, I'll totally eat top ramen, but I crave ramen like once a month. So that was like just such a standout. Like I did so many. I've been to Japan a few times and I've done incredible things, but like that bowl of ramen,
Mm.
like I have dreams about it still.
That
Yeah,
sounds
when we
good.
got home from Japan, that was the thing is we were craving authentic Japanese ramen, and so we found this place kind of
Oh,
close to our house.
And didn't we? Okay, no, actually, you're. When we landed, so when we went to Thailand, didn't we stop over in Japan, and the first thing we got was ramen at the
Oh
airport.
yeah, at the airport before
Yeah.
because we
Didn't even make it in yet, and we still had ramen like right away.
yeah on our layover before because we went to Thailand first, but then we stopped over in Japan and then went to Japan after. But anyways, yeah, the ramen honestly is next level.
I really just like the Japanese culture. I just thought that was really cool. Like I didn't really know what to fully expect. I kind of talked the guy that gave us those recommendations. He goes there for work a lot, a couple times a year, and he actually has like a little interactive map that you log in on your Gmail, and it kind of syncs up to where you are, shows you like shopping, food, and everything like that. And but I was more blown away with like the culture. Like the people there are so nice, and so friendly, and everything's so clean, and I don't know. I just thought it was really cool how quaint like some of the shops are, like way deep underground. Like that one bar we went to was like I felt like we were walking down like 8 floors into like the Earth's core to get to.
And there was this one bar and they're all wearing tuxedos, all the servers, and there's so many spots like that, and so it's like it's a good mix of things for sure, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the other thing is that everyone, no matter what job they have, if they're a janitor cleaning the street, or if they're a server in a restaurant, or if they're like, working at a hotel, like everyone puts so much respect and honor into their jobs. Like their workforce is so, they're just it doesn't matter what kind of job they have, like it's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating culture.
And I love the bowing too, how everyone bows, and then you can't turn around until you've done the last bow, and so
Yeah.
depending on who is more, I think it's so who is like more elder than the other person, then they have to bow, or the opposite person to them has to continue bowing until they fully back away. So you'll see these groups of businessmen bowing, and then they're so far away from each other and they're still bowing because no one wants to turn around and walk away. It's so crazy.
And how about how like tipping is offensive because they think that they shouldn't need a tip because they're doing their job like to the ability that they're paid to do, and so by tipping it's actually like not really it's not really recommended or something like that. They don't like it.
That is so the freaking opposite of American culture.
I know. And that's why it's refreshing too, because it's like it's so different than ours, I think. And that's what's nice about traveling is you get to experience something totally different, and I think it really rounds people out. You know what I mean? Traveling.
Yeah. I mean, it totally traveling, I mean, we could get into like why traveling is good for you, but generally like it breaks and kills stereotypes, you know, like it really makes people understand. And at the same time, when you travel, you know, most of that like fear and misunderstanding, you know, it's completely eliminated, and you realize that like all everyone wants to do is like eat good food, laugh a lot, and like have sex, pretty much, you know.
Well, it really connects, I think, the human experience, and you realize how we're all essentially the same at our core, and that's something like that is very cool to be like, we might be from a different country, we might not speak the same language, but like we're the same. Yeah,
we all enjoy kind of the same stuff.
Totally. Yeah. So what's next on your travel list, on your, like, what's your future plans? I'd love to hear about what the rest of 2020, 2021. I'm like, I was like, is it 2022? I don't know. Honestly, they're all blending. What's the rest of the year?
I feel like we're in Q5 of 2020.
I know, right?
Like it's still kind of here, but like, yeah, but you know, I just got an email, speaking of like moving out of 2020, this is like the last quarter of 2020, whatever. I got an email from my health insurance saying that I'm eligible to get a vaccine. So
Nice. Oh my God, exciting. I'm jealous. This is the only time I'm jealous of the US health, because we have free healthcare in Canada, but right, I'm jealous of you guys right now because we've dropped the ball on the vaccine.
Yeah, you're way ahead of us.
That's exciting.
Yeah, but you guys have like 10 people in your country.
I know, yeah. Literally. And then you guys have we have 10% of what you
California has more people than Canada in it.
It's disappointing, honestly, but that's amazing.
So I have that coming up, which I'm really excited. So I'll probably hopefully I'll get my first dose at the end of March.
That's insane.
And I know. So like I'm looking forward and being like, I might have the vaccine, finish the vaccine out by March. By April. So, what's coming up? My brother and I are going to the Dominican Republic. We're going to Punta Cana. We got this trip with this place there, and yeah, so we're going to do that together. And it's been a while since we've traveled together, and it's only going to be us two. So it's going to be really wacky and energetic and fun. And we're like probably just, you know, going to just have a ton of fun and then also relax and make a ton of content, because my views on Instagram and YouTube like skyrocket when my family is in my videos. So that's like something that I know that really works for my social media. And then Harley, my boyfriend, but I call him my husband. So because it just sounds more mature. And also like when we're doing all these, like when I'm pitching all of these companies to like go skiing or like stay in these hotels, like it's just more mature if I say husband.
Yeah, I know. So, I always call Peter my partner and things, and then I'm like, oh, I think they think I'm a lesbian, but I mean that's cool.
Wish you wouldn't do that.
Okay, no, but I feel like boyfriend feels very.
I didn't
childish.
even know that you call me your
said
partner.
Your partner. Well, because the thing is, it feels more mature. It's like we're obviously not married yet, and I think calling someone your boyfriend, like it just makes them feel a bit younger. So I'm like, I prefer partner, but then I think people think I'm dating a woman, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm like, I don't know. So I get that.
I've had this exact conversation with Harley, and I'm like, should I call you partner, or like, you know, should I just say you're my husband or whatever? So, so we're gonna go to Colombia we just booked all of our flights and stuff like last night. And also I will credit Harley. This was like totally him. He wanted to do this, and I was like, hell yeah, let's go to Colombia. I've never been there. So we're gonna go for the month of May to June. We're gonna go back to San Francisco April, and then we'll go to Colombia.
My brother's been to Colombia twice. It's his favorite place to visit. He's my younger brother. So
Does
if I'm
he have
gonna,
all the suggestions and the recommendations?
well, probably, but one place that he really liked in Colombia was Cartagena. So if you go there, make sure you check out
Okay.
Cartagena. I think it's like the north part of Colombia by the water. He
Yeah.
really liked it there.
Cool. Okay, definitely. Yeah, we got an Airbnb in Medellin for a
Oh
month.
yeah, Medellin's like, yeah, he that's where he stayed. He stayed for like a month in Medellin. He had a friend that lives there. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, Harley was like all about it because he's working from home, and we did a month in Tulum, and like it just wasn't what we thought it was going to be because we work online and having reliable Wi-Fi is essential to what we do, you know? And so unfortunately Tulum, that's a huge problem there, is like their Wi-Fi is not reliable and it's slow and it goes down all the time. So we were like looking up what are really good cities in the world that are number one accepting Americans right now. And obviously I think I mean, things are going to change rapidly again, just like they were last year. Now that vaccines rolling out, but apparently Medellin is the number one digital nomad city in the world,
Wow,
according
I
to
didn't
like
know that.
recent articles. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Um, any challenges planned for either of these trips?
No, I have not done any brainstorming. So I'm in Montana right now, and next week I'm going to be working at a cattle ranch.
Love that.
And
Get those cows. Be like, come
Nice.
on, guys.
yeah, exactly. Well, okay, here's the thing. Like, I don't do well around big animals. It's not like okay, I am kind of scared of them, but it's not like I'm scared of them that I think they're going to attack me. Like, I just don't want to mess with them because I'm a small person. And like, if anything bumps into me, I literally will die, you know? Like, if anything falls on me, I'm going to die. So, like, I just don't want to disturb them. So, I'm going to be working with like baby cat. Like, one of the things I'm going to have to do is, take baby calves and like pin them on the ground so that they can get branded.
I thought you were gonna say you had to pin them down before like bringing them to the slaughterhouse. I was like, oh God, this sounds awful.
No. Yeah. So, and then I'll
Oh,
be,
that's also
working.
branding them's a little scarring too, though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, I've never even stepped on a cattle ranch. I have no idea what's ahead. So yeah, but then for Colombia, I mean, it would be so sick to make a video like I worked on how do you say it, like cocaine plants, or like I worked in a
Oh,
cocaine farm,
Like
but
coca
like that's
plants.
so not, I would probably get demonetized and like taken down. But yeah, I haven't brainstormed it yet, so I have to think about, usually like when I go in and when I go into brainstorm about like these jobs, I basically think about like what are the most like cliche ideas or tropes from the country that I'm going to, and then I kind of like work my way around that. And I was just thinking about this the other day or last night when we were booking all our stuff. I was like, the only thing, and like, okay, this call this ignorance, but the only thing I know about Colombia is Pablo Escobar and the drug deal, the drug cartels.
did
Yeah.
you watch the Netflix series?
Of course, yeah,
It was a
yeah,
good one. Yeah.
yeah. It was really good.
That's so funny. Well, I'm honestly, that's going to be really, really cool. I'm super excited for you. And I know you and Harley are going to have such a good time there.
Yeah, yeah, we're super excited to get there. And I mean, this whole like working remotely for him is coming to an end, probably by the summer. So we're trying to get in the countries that we want to stay in the next coming months.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of starting to make those decisions now too,
Yeah.
because everything's. If I don't know, I'm hopeful that everything will be back to normal soon. It seems like it's on its way there.
Yeah.
And so if people wanted to follow you, find your vlogs, where can they find that?
My YouTube channel is called Haley Takes on the World. My Instagram is called Haley Takes on the World. My TikTok is also Haley Takes on the World. So everything is pretty much Haley Takes on the World.
And Haley spelled Haley.
Yes,
Because
that
we
is
know there's
correct.
many ways to spell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was so good talking to you and catching up. I always love hanging out with you and traveling with you. So hopefully we can plan a fun trip for the fall when everything's cleared, because I'm missing traveling. And we need to do where can we go? Where should we go next? I'm trying to think of we had brainstormed some ideas to go.
We were talking about going to the Caribbean.
Oh yeah, I
Oh, that'd
remember
be
that. The
nice.
Caribbean, and then we also like I'd love to do Sri Lanka. Um,
Yeah, or we should do something somewhere in, have you been to Vietnam?
yeah, I went ages ago, but that's one Southeast Asian country that I actually have. I've only gone once, I think, or twice, but I've not done too much of it. So that's something we should definitely add to the list because
Ooh,
I really want to do
we're
Vietnam.
so good at traveling Asia together. Let's go to Vietnam.
Yeah, get a little girl group together, and we'll be ready to go.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that in the fall.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again. And you guys definitely make sure to follow Haley. She's such a talented female travel vlogger. And yeah, your videos are awesome. So I'm excited to see what you have coming up in the future. And I know you're going to continue to kill it on social media.
Yay, it was so great chatting with you guys. Thanks for having me.